tonight on First at 9 this Sunday the 21st of September 2025. UN debut. President Anura Dissanayake to visit the United States tomorrow to attend the 80th United Nations General Assembly. Meeting scheduled with UN Secretary General and several world leaders on the sidelines of the summit. A year's work. Figures from across the political spectrum split on the NPP government's performance a year into President Disanayake's tenure. Maritime tensions. Indian naval ship Satpura arrives at the port of Colombo while tensions rise with the detection of China's infamous Yuanwang 5 ship in the Indian Ocean. Sri Lanka's Defence Secretary affirms commitment to a free and peaceful Indian Ocean region at a summit in China. Union dissent. CEB employs to further intensify trade union action against restructuring by withdrawal from tender committees.
Kalin baby serve rupial 90කට. Kalin baby podi හැමෝටමයි.
From Derana, this is Derana First at 9. Live from Studio 24 in Colombo.
Good evening and welcome to Derana First at 9. I'm Aditya Singh joining you live with the latest in Sri Lanka and around the world, brought to you by the only Sri Lankan media network to rise to the pinnacle across all media platforms, recognized as the best by every survey and beloved by the people. Now, on your top story tonight, President Anura Dissanayake is set to make an official state visit to the United States tomorrow to attend the upcoming session of the United Nations General Assembly on September 24th. During his official visit, the Sri Lankan president will also hold bilateral discussions with the Secretary General of the United Nations and several other world leaders.
President Anura Dissanayake is expected to undertake an official visit to the United States tomorrow to attend the 80th session of the United Nations General Assembly. President Dissanayake is set to address the United Nations General Assembly for the first time on the 24th of September at 3:15 p.m. Eastern Daylight Time. During his visit, President Anura Dissanayake is also scheduled to hold bilateral discussions with the Secretary General of the United Nations and several world leaders. In the meantime, the President is also set to meet the Sri Lankan community living in the United States. Today marks 1 year since Anura Dissanayake was elected as the country's 9th executive president. Reflecting on the political changes over the past year, Minister of Transport, Highways, Ports and Civil Aviation Bimal Ratnayake noted the transformation that has taken place under the current administration. He made these remarks speaking at an event regarding road development in Damana Ampara.
364 days ago, on September 21st, 2024, the people of Sri Lanka changed course by setting aside a grim 76-year history. A year has passed by since Comrade Anura Dissanayake assumed the presidency. We actually started to work after the 6th of May. Chairpersons of local governments were elected on May 6th, and until then, the Election Commission didn't let us work. When election campaigns are underway, we are not allowed to continue development projects. This event, held to officially commence construction of a stretch of road, is symbolic since it is a metaphor to Sri Lanka's new path into the future. The initial investment for the construction of this road was estimated at 150 million rupees. However, subsequently the estimate was brought down to 130 million rupees, saving up 20 million rupees in government revenue. The saving must correspond to the lack of corruption now. Since we never steal, money is saved. The construction sector will also find it convenient to work in an environment such as this. Now, when are you planning to finish constructing this road? It will finish on December 23rd, which means it will be inaugurated on Christmas Day. That is good. Construct this road well. Let's also build the country well together.
Opposition leader Sajith Premadasa alleges that the government's sole achievement during its 1 year in office has been the deepening of public suffering, driving citizens further into hardship, with more than half the population now living in poverty. Addressing a public gathering today, Premadasa urged the authorities to hold the long overdue provincial council elections, declaring that the people are now ready to vote this government out of power.
Another iteration of the opposition leaders' mobile service series was held in Galnava today under the patronage of opposition leader Sajith Premadasa.
Has the incumbent president delivered on a single promise made before the election? Today marks 1 year since he assumed the presidency, and yet we must ask, why has he turned a deaf ear to the people's grievances? This government came to power pledging a thriving nation and a beautiful life for its citizens. Instead, it has bowed down to the dictates of the IMF, becoming nothing more than its obedient follower. After a year in office, their only accomplishment has been worsening the people's hardships, depriving them of their livelihoods and pushing them further into despair. Today, over half of our population has fallen into poverty, and for this the government must be held responsible. We call upon the authorities to conduct the long-delayed provincial council elections, as the people are ready to send this government home.
Now, the political spectrum remains split over the incumbent government's performance, particularly in light of a year passing by since President Anura Dissanayake assumed office. Let's take a look at some political thoughts in that regard.
Within a year, we have set up a completely clean political culture. The people of this country are indeed elated by the fact that we put an end to corrupt politics. All those who voted for change can take a moment to reminisce if the change that they voted for actually manifested within this past year. Let me know if this government did anything to raise your standard of living within this year. Within this year, we only saw threats, revenge, deceit and lies. What they do is take credit for something we already did. Completing stalled development projects is a responsibility of the government. However, we have also initiated new development projects. We have only been in office for about a year. Within the next few years, we will bolster Sri Lanka's economy rapidly. The general public has vested that mandate with us. We will work accordingly. They have begun constructing the highway they themselves stopped. A certain individual who raised concern when a tree was going to be removed to make way for the highway is nowhere to be found now. That individual had ties with the incumbent government. I heard that she is a member of the NPP. She was the reason why the construction of the highway stopped. The Attorney General must call an audit to calculate the loss incurred by stalling the construction and file a lawsuit to claim damages. Some good theatrics were on display back then. Now the party that's the incumbent government begins construction of the highway like the previous government intended to. Everyone who opposed its construction back then is silent. 23 directors and chairpersons appointed to various public institutions by the incumbent government have already resigned. That is how good the government is. The public presented a set of questions to us. At the moment, we are answering those questions. The general public will decide if the answers are satisfactory. Therefore, the general public will be the arbiters of our success. A year is by no means a short time period. A year corresponds to 1/5 or 20% of the president's tenure. Therefore, the nature of the innings being played by the government is clear. In a 50-over cricket encounter, the direction of the game becomes clear after the first 10 overs. What is clear is that the government is more keen on doing the unnecessary as opposed to doing what is actually necessary.
Meanwhile, leader of Sarvajana Balaya parliamentarian Dilith Jayawira claims that accepting welfare from schemes such as Aswasima will never inspire prosperity among the country's citizens. Calling the schemes an extension of narrow political agendas, Jayawira outlines the need for a proper plan for progress.
The Sarvajana Sabha of Kimbulwanapura division in Hiriyala Kurunagala was established today under the patronage of Sarvajana Balaya leader parliamentarian Dilith Jayawira.
After 76 years, President Anura Dissanayake proved that the oppressed could rarely seize power, and even if they do, those who end up in power are never the oppressed. What actually ended up happening? Under the new Anti-Corruption Act, many incumbent MPs had to declare their assets and liabilities. The declarations revealed that those who claim to be from oppressed classes of society are not in fact actually from those classes. Having a lot of rupees is one thing. However, Deputy Minister Chaturanga Abesinghe declared about $150,000 in one of his bank accounts. That corresponds to 45 million rupees. Dilith Jayawira happens to be one of Sri Lanka's most highly acclaimed entrepreneurs. We asked him if he has a bank account with US dollars. He claims that it is difficult to maintain such accounts. While Sri Lanka toiled hard with an acute shortage of dollars, people like Abesinghe must have had all the dollars with them. Each passing day, you are inadvertently pushed further into poverty. To recalibrate Sri Lanka's course, we need a proper plan. Sarvajana Balaya's strategic plan for Sri Lanka was prepared with a thorough understanding and awareness of the ground realities in Sri Lanka. How can an average Sri Lankan make it out of poverty by thinking creatively with an entrepreneurial attitude and self-confidence? Claiming insignificant sums of money through welfare schemes will never inspire prosperity. Welfare schemes such as Aswasuma set up to satisfy political agendas are all exercises in deceit. You will never progress by claiming welfare. We need a better program. You need a system that facilitates the generation of revenue to sustain your household. We don't engage in politics for personal gain. We have taken up politics to give, not to take. Ours is a pure and genuine political endeavour.
Meanwhile, the Sarvajana Sabha of the Magal Legama division in the Nikavarataya electorate was established today. During the event, MP Dilith Jayavira connected with small-scale entrepreneurs in the area.
Prime Minister Dr. Haruni Amarasuri emphasizes that there will be no cuts to religious or aesthetic subjects in the national school curriculum under the new government. She made this revelation during a discussion with members of the Buddha Sasana task force.
A high-level discussion on the future of religious and aesthetic education was held yesterday at the Ministry of Education, bringing together Minister of Higher Education and Vocational Education, Prime Minister Dr. Haruni Amarasuri and members of the Buddha Sasana task force. The delegation included senior members of the Buddhist clergy, including Venerable Trikunamale Anandathero, Venerable Professor Agalakada Siti Suminathero, as well as other scholars and educationists. During the discussion, Prime Minister Dr. Amarasuri firmly stated that the current government has no intention of removing or reducing religious education or aesthetic subjects from the national curriculum. She emphasized the government's continued commitment to preserving the country's spiritual and cultural values through education. The meeting also addressed the upcoming 2026 education reforms. The Prime Minister noted that under the new curriculum, all students from grade 6 will begin with a foundational lesson covering the basic principles of all major religions. Following this introduction, students will then continue to study in depth their own respective religions. Additionally, attention was drawn to the shortage of teachers qualified to teach Buddhism. The Prime Minister assured that a formal teacher recruitment and deployment plan will be implemented to address these shortcomings and ensure balanced teacher distribution across the country. The revised textbook for Buddhism to be published under the new syllabus was also reviewed during the meeting.
Now, Sri Lanka's Defence Secretary Air Vice Marshal Sampath Tuyakonta says that Sri Lanka, as a strategic location in the world trade route, is ready to act as a bridge of peace and cooperation, facilitating connectivity, trade and cultural dialogue between the East and the West. Joining the 12th Beijing Jiangshan Forum held in China, the Defence Secretary states that despite the mismatch of opinions between the nations in the region, all conflicts must be resolved through dialogue and consultation, which according to the Defence Secretary is the only sustainable path forward.
The 12th Beijing Shangshan Forum, co-hosted by China Association of Military Science and the China Institute of International Strategic Studies, was held in China from September 17th to 19th. This year's theme was Safeguarding the International Order and Promoting Peaceful Development Together. Participating in the forum, Sri Lanka's Defence Secretary, Air Vice Marshal Sampath Tuyakonta, emphasized the importance of collective dialogue, regional cooperation and mutual respect in addressing global and regional security challenges. Speaking at the 4th plenary session on the topic, Building Regional Peace Through Dialogue and Consultation, Tuyakonta stated that all nations must take seriously the legitimate security concerns of every country and promote the peaceful settlement of differences and disputes through dialogue and consultation. Quoting President Xi Jinping's call to respect the legitimate security concerns of all nations and resolve disputes through consultation, the Defence Secretary noted that true peace is achieved not merely through the absence of conflict but through dialogue, understanding and constructive engagement. Highlighting Sri Lanka's strategic location, he reaffirmed the country's long-standing commitment to ensuring that the Indian Ocean remains a zone of peace, open to cooperation and free from conflict. He stated that Sri Lanka stands ready to act as a bridge of peace and cooperation, facilitating connectivity connectivity, trade and cultural dialogue between East and West. He also acknowledged China's steadfast support in safeguarding Sri Lanka's sovereignty and stability, as well as its contribution to military training and infrastructure development. Reaffirming Sri Lanka's commitment to regional stability, the Defence Secretary stated that differences are inevitable, but they must never lead to confrontation. Dialogue and consultation are the only suitable path forward. He concluded by calling for regional initiatives such as the Belt and Road Initiative and ASEAN's outlook on the Indo-Pacific to complement one another in fostering peace and cooperation.
Now, the Indian naval ship Satpura arrived at the port of Colombo yesterday for replenishment and an operational turnaround. Meanwhile, tensions have risen following the detection of China's infamous Yuan 5 ship in the Indian Ocean. The vessel, officially designated as a Chinese research ship, is widely regarded as a sophisticated intelligence-gathering platform. Its presence in the region comes 3 years after its last controversial visit to Sri Lanka.
The Indian naval ship Satpura arrived at the port of Colombo for replenishment and operational turnaround yesterday, where it was received by the Sri Lanka Navy in accordance with time-honoured naval traditions. INS Satpura is a 142.5-metre-long frigate manned by a crew of 403 personnel and is commanded by Captain Vikas Garg. Meanwhile, 3 years after its controversial entry into the Indian Ocean, China's Yuan 5, a vessel officially designated as a research ship but widely regarded as a sophisticated intelligence-gathering platform, has once again been tracked near the region, sparking fresh concerns within India's security establishment. The vessel has been under close observation since departing Indonesia approximately 36 hours ago, with Bangladeshi naval officials noting its likely trajectory toward the Bay of Bengal. While Dhaka has openly monitored the ship's movements, India is reportedly on high alert, with the vessel's presence being taken very seriously due to its advanced space tracking and surveillance capabilities. This is the second time in 3 years that the Yuan 5 has approached waters near India. In August 2022, the ship docked at Sri Lanka's Hambantota port despite strong objections from New Delhi. Defense analysts have long interpreted the Yuan 5's presence in the Indian Ocean littoral as indicative of Beijing's expanding military footprint in the region. International reports suggest that the timing of the vessel's return has further heightened strategic concerns in India, as it coincides with the recently concluded US-Bangladesh joint military exercise Pacific Angel 2025 in Chittagong and Cox's Bazar. Analysts in New Delhi cautioned that the renewed presence of Yuan 5 may not only serve satellite tracking purposes but could also allow Beijing to gather valuable intelligence on regional military activities, particularly as India and the United States deepen their security cooperation in South Asia.
Welcome back. You're joining Ada Derana, Sri Lanka's most trusted news source. Now, trade unions affiliated with the Ceylon Electricity Board announced that they will intensify their trade union action further against the proposed restructuring of the CEB effective midnight tonight. As part of the intensified campaign, CEB employees announced they will withdraw from participation in tender committees despite warnings that such actions could lead to financial losses.
Following the enactment of the Sri Lanka Electricity Amendment Bill to restructure the Ceylon Electricity Board on August 6th, trade unions affiliated with the CEB commenced an island-wide strike from midnight on the 4th of September. As part of their escalating trade union action, the electricity employees reported sick leave on the 17th and 18th to stage a demonstration outside the CEB head office in Colombo Fort. Against this backdrop, the trade unions announced today that they will further intensify their 17-day-long strike. Commencing from midnight tonight, workers will withdraw from all procurement and tender-related activities as part of their latest phase of their trade union action.
From midnight tonight, we will withdraw from all procurement, tender-related and reform committees. We will also refrain from drafting letters to any institution, and we will not perform duties outside our official job descriptions. If employees step away from procurement and tender committees, product quality checks cannot be carried out. This will delay estimations, cause financial losses to the board, and will severely inconvenience the public. Should the ministry fail to manage the institution, the consequences will be severe. Additional expenses may also arise if employees do not take part in these committees. That said, solutions are possible through extensive discussions. For this, we need the cooperation of staff. We also appeal to the President to intervene and instruct the Secretary to the Ministry of Energy to join these discussions. With such intervention, these issues can be resolved through negotiations.
The National Movement for Public Rights alleges foul play in the recent alteration of the tender procedure of state-run LP gas supplier Lanka, warning it may jeopardize the state monopoly on LP gas. The movement filed a complaint with the Bribery Commission in this regard.
The National Movement for Public Rights recently filed a complaint with the Commission to investigate allegations of bribery or corruption, alleging an irregularity in the alteration of the tender procedure of state-run LP gas supplier Litro Gas Lanka.
Recently, MP Dayasiri Jayasekara made a statement about an irregularity in the tender process of Litro. Among Sri Lankan LP gas suppliers, Litro holds the state monopoly. There are two gas suppliers in Sri Lanka, one a state-owned enterprise and the other a private entity. Litro always conducted business while keeping a certain distance with its competitor. Litro never allowed its competitor to bid on its tenders, nor allowed bidders to make use of the competitor's storage or transportation facilities. During the past, various governments were requested to relax these two restrictions. Had the restrictions been relaxed, Litro would have never become the profit-making entity it is today. However, under the current government, these conditions have been repealed and a new tender procedure is adopted, permitting bidders to utilize the storage and transportation facilities of Litro's competitor. This will cause Litro to lose its monopoly, risking the ability to set market prices for domestic gas. It is the people who will suffer if the monopoly falls into the hands of a private firm. There is definitely corruption behind this illegal process. That is why we requested that the Bribery Commission conduct an investigation into the matter and punish all those connected with this irregularity.
And now here's a look at more local news across the island in brief.
Two individuals involved in tourism in Rumasala, Unawatuna were arrested by the tourist police this morning over the alleged assault of a group of German tourists. The suspects reportedly attacked the visitors after a dispute involving vehicle parking. They were handed over to Habaradua police and will be produced in court tomorrow. Meanwhile, notorious drug trafficker Potta Miller and three close associates were arrested by Moragahahena police in a major anti-narcotics operation. The suspects were found with 5,300 narcotic pills and 15,000 milligrams of crystal methamphetamine valued at around 1 million rupees. Police also seized 3 mobile phones linked to the drug trade. As the police continue to crack down on the narcotics trade in Sri Lanka, law enforcement authorities raided a suspected meth lab in Salmaluyana, Valigama, leading to the arrest of an 18-year-old Moldovan national. Large quantities of chemicals and equipment used to produce crystal methamphetamine were seized during the operation. Further police investigations are currently underway with the assistance of the Police Narcotics Bureau.
Now in your business news, Fitch Ratings has placed 435 long-term debt ratings of 25 sovereigns, including Sri Lanka, under criteria observation following the publication of updated sovereign rating criteria on September 15th. Among the debt instruments designated as under criteria observation are 3 Sri Lankan bonds, including a $1.44 billion variable bond, with a June 2035 maturity, a $1.64 billion 4% bond with an April 2028 maturity, and a $1.13 billion variable bond with a 2038 maturity, all rated CCC+. Fitch said the UCO designation indicates that the existing ratings may change as a direct result of an application of the updated criteria. However, it does not indicate a change in the underlying credit profile nor affect existing outlooks or rating watches. Fitch is scheduled to review all ratings placed on UCO within 6 months, but they will not necessarily change. That's all for tonight from First at 9. For the latest developments around the clock, stay in touch with Other Derana, the Sri Lankan news brand of international excellence. Thank you for joining. Have a great night.
For news and information you can trust 24 hours a day, visit otherderana.lk.